All right, let's talk about populism. You hear this word thrown around all the time, right? And it's always so emotionally charged. But what does it actually mean? It can feel pretty confusing. Frankly, it's a bit of a slippery concept. So we're going to try and pin it down and get a much clearer picture of what it's all about.
And really, that's the heart of the problem. The term itself is just notoriously hard to define. I mean, sometimes it's just used as a political insult, right? Or it's a label you just slap on policies you don't like. Or maybe it's this big catch-all for any movement that seems to be shaking things up. But you know what? None of that really gets to the core of what populism actually is.
Yeah, so you see all these common ideas floating around? Is it just, political pandering, promising whatever it takes to get votes? Is it all just driven by resentment and fear? Or is it simply about being anti-establishment, anti-institutions? Maybe it's just another word for nationalism. You even hear some people say it's a corrective for democracy. But here's the thing. These descriptions are usually super vague, often really partisan, and they just don't get to the heart of the matter.
Okay, so let's cut through all that noise. The source material we're looking at here gives us a much clearer way to think about this. It really boils everything down to one single defining trait. And this is what separates populism from everything else.
All right, so check this out. It turns out populism really has two key ingredients. First up, you've got anti-elitism, going after the people in power, the establishment. And that's a big part of it for sure. But lots of politicians do that, right? That alone doesn't make you a populist. The real secret ingredient, the thing that makes all the difference, is the second one, anti-pluralism. This is the game changer.
So this is it. This is the core definition we need to understand. Populism isn't really about a specific set of policies. It's more like a particular way of looking at politics. It's a deeply moralistic view, where populists claim that they, and only they, represent the real, authentic, morally pure people. And what about everyone else? Well, in this view, they're not just wrong, they're illegitimate. And this quote is a perfect example of what we're talking about. When Donald Trump said, "The other people don't mean anything," he was drawing a very clear moral line in the sand. See, he wasn't just saying, "Hey, I represent my supporters." He was saying something much bigger. That people who don't support him, well, they aren't even part of the real people that matter.
And it's the exact same logic at play right here. When Nigel Farage called Brexit a victory for real people, you have to ask, what does that mean for the 48% of people who voted to remain? The implication is pretty clear, right? They're somehow not real people. That is anti-pluralism, right there in a nutshell. It's saying your opponents and the people who voted for them are simply not legitimate.
Okay, so we've got the core idea down. But what happens when this isn't just talk? When it's not just a slogan on the campaign trail? What does it look like when populists actually win and get into power? Well, it turns out this way of thinking leads to a pretty distinct style of governing.
It's like they have a playbook, and it's usually got three main moves. First, they try to occupy the state. That means packing institutions, think courts, the civil service, you name it, with their own loyal supporters. Second, they go big on rewarding their friends and punishing their enemies. You'll see them hand out benefits to their supporters, while at the same time using the legal system to go after their opponents. And third, they try to silence anyone who pushes back. We're talking about civil society groups, NGOs, critical media, anyone who challenges their claim to be the one true voice of the people.
And here's the really wild part. They don't do this stuff in secret. They do it right out in the open, and they believe they're totally in the right. Their justification is actually pretty simple. It goes something like this. We are the only legitimate representatives of the people. So when we take over the state, or when we reward our supporters, that's not corruption, that's justice. It's just the real people finally taking back what's theirs.
And this logic, this idea that you're the only true voice of the people, it doesn't just stop with taking over the institutions that are already there. Nope. The ultimate goal, the final play, is to rewrite the rules of the game itself. So this is a good place to bust a pretty common myth. You often hear that populists are anti-institutions, but that's not quite right. They aren't against institutions in general. What they are against is any institution that doesn't give them the result they think is morally correct. So we're talking courts, the media, election watchdogs, anything that gets in their way. And when they get enough power, they don't just tear things down, they build their own institutions, designed to work for them. And this table here lays out the difference perfectly. Think about a regular democratic constitution. Its whole purpose is to protect pluralism, to make sure there's space for lots of different groups and ideas. It basically leaves the question of who are the people as an open one. But a populist constitution? That's a totally different beast. It tries to lock in one single partisan idea of who the people are. Its goal is to create certainty, the certainty that they're going to stay in power. And this isn't just theory. We've seen it happen in the real world. Take Hungary, for instance, where a new fundamental law was pushed through by just one party to basically write its vision of the nation into law. Or look at Venezuela, Ecuador, and Bolivia, where new constitutions were used to beef up the power of the president, gut checks and balances, and kick opponents out of their jobs. And it's all done in the name of representing the supposed true will of the people.
All right, this brings us to what might be the single most important takeaway from all of this. We have to be super careful not to confuse what is populist with what is simply popular. They sound similar, but they are worlds apart.
And really, it all comes down to one little word. Just look at the difference. The populist claim is all about exclusion. It says, we and only we are the people. The whole point is to shut other people out, to say they don't count. But a popular democratic movement, that's about inclusion. Its claim is, hey, we are also the people. It's the sound of people on the outside fighting to get in, demanding their seat at the table.
And this is just so crucial to remember. Criticizing the people in charge, protesting against things that are wrong, fighting to make sure more voices are heard, that's not populism. That is literally the engine of democracy. It's how a healthy democracy works, how it grows, and how it gets better over time.
So that really leaves us with this one big question to think about. In a real democracy, who actually gets to decide who the people are? Populists, well, they try to give you one final unchanging answer. But the whole point of a democracy is that the answer to that question can never be locked down. It is to stay open, it has to be debated, and it has to keep on growing.